So welcome to our audience. Thank you for joining us today. And we're excited to host this webinar, which is based on should your firm be registered with the PPRA, hosted by C2 Training Solutions, as well as PropAcademy working together. For those who've just joined, keep in mind your cameras and your mics will be muted for the reason to reduce any disruptions or any background noises. It's never ideal to have a dog barking in the back, but we can manage that through this approach. If you happen to drop out of the session by accident, just get right back in. We know internet always gives issues. Jump back in, use the same link you got from the registration, and we'll admit you to the session again. If you have any questions throughout the session, please use the chat room to drop it there. It also gives everyone a chance to see what you're asking, and then that reduces the repeat of questions and also the support of other statements. We normally reserve Q&A until the end of the session, just so that we can reserve some proper time for it. We normally leave it at the last 10 to 15 minutes. So just keep that in mind, but please post your questions on the chat room. We'll acknowledge you, and we will collaborate on the questions based on what we receive. We're not going to repeat questions just to save time, but we will make sure that everyone gets addressed where we can. When a question cannot be addressed, Courtney or Janet will either recommend that you schedule a call with them to go into a deep dive. All right, I'm going to hand over to the ladies to do a proper introduction. So I think, Courtney, we can start with you and then over to Janet.
Cool, thank you, Colleen. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so nice. Again, I know I say it every time, but it really is nice to see such familiar names and faces joining us. It's really nice, and thank you so much for your support. Okay, and as Colleen said, we're here to answer questions you have. We've got quite a bit to go through today. So for those who don't know me, I'm Courtney McKenna, and I am the National Business Development Manager of PropAcademy, which is an online training provider. We're actually the real estate faculty of CTU. And then I'm going to hand over to Janet to explain, to introduce herself, sorry.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Colleen. And thank you for having me on board. Property Principal Services is a fairly new business. And what we do is we are experts in compliance with the PPRA and with FIC. So we hope we can help you today.
Fantastic. I think we can jump right into it. So let's start with the first topic of discussion, and that is, what are the key criteria for determining whether a real estate firm needs to be registered with the PPRA? I think Janet and Courtney, that's for both of you.
Okay, so basically, if I'll just jump in here first, Courtney. We all know that there's the Property Practitioners Act number 22-2019 that was promulgated. And that is very, very clear on who has to register as a property practitioner. And basically, the rule of thumb is that if you are providing any type of service to the industry, to the property industry, for which you take a fee, you are a property practitioner. I'm just going to go one little step further to say the only time that you deal in property that you are not classed as a property practitioner is when you sell your personal primary residence, or that is the only time you would be excluded. Okay, Court, I wonder if you want to put up that slide and we can just have a quick glance through the different categories.
Yes, can you see my slide?
Yes, we can. I think you can just throw it full screen. There we go.
Done that. Okay, that's cool. So we will go into depth on this in question 6 a little bit later, but just for the start of this conversation, here is the list of the specialized real estate categories that the PPRA have given us. Okay, so we've got real estate, and that's any individual or entity who facilitates a sale, purchase, or rental of the property. We've got auctioneers, any auctioneers dealing in property auctions. We've got bond originators and finance originators. Okay, so they're dealing with the finance and any sort of advances, etc. Property managers who manage rentals on behalf of landlords. Business brokers, who facilitate the sale of a business that can include the property as part of the transaction. Okay, so they're not just selling the actual business itself, they're including the building or the land, obviously both, in the entire transaction. And then you've got property developers, people who develop properties for rental or for sale. And you've got home inspectors as well. And let's just have a look over here. You've got some, basically anyone offering or facilitating property advice for compensation, such as consulting on property investments. Okay, you've got attorney employees and timeshare and fractional ownership practitioners. You can take a screenshot of this as well. It will be made available for you, but this is just a nice breakdown. And then we can move on to the next question.
So basically, how does legislation regulate this? I think, Jan, that's where your expertise falls.
Of course. Okay, so we all know that the Act mandates that every property practitioner must register with the PPRA, and in doing so, they achieve a Fidelity Fund certificate. So it also gives provisions for regulations, okay, and the regulations manage the Act. So if the Act stipulates that you have to have a FFC, the regulation will show you how you must achieve the FFC. So that is how you look at them in conjunction with each other. Now, with the provisions, it's a compulsory registration. You have to register. If you are part of the specialized field, you are a property practitioner. If you do not register, you are in trouble. Okay, so you are also issued on a successful registration, you then issued with a Fidelity Fund certificate, and you are prohibited from operating if you do not hold a valid FFC. You are prohibited from earning commissions if you don't hold a valid FFC. And what the Act does and the regulations do is they impose penalties. And the penalties are there to ensure that you adhere and that you remain compliant. Okay. So if you are faced with a penalty, you're unable to claim commission, you are an unlawful agent, and you are going to be invalidated. So that is huge. If you do not have an FFC, you cannot achieve a commission. If you are invalidated, you cannot achieve a commission. Now, if your deal is invalidated because you are non-compliant, you have put your public at risk. You've put your landlord or your owner or your tenant or your buyer at risk. So please, you have to be compliant. And it's simple. And then what the board do as well, the regulations do, is they ensure that you have ongoing compliance. And this ongoing compliance means you must go ahead and renew your FFC every rolling period, 3 years or whatever your FFC is. And remember, if your FFC right now says 2024, before the end of this month, you must renew your FFC. The PPRA also have a code of conduct, which is regulated. And in this regulation, you have to undergo your CPD education. And the CPD is there. A lot of if you've been doing your CPD, you'll notice that a lot of the courses on the modules are there to help you understand the changes in the processes within the PPRA. Okay, I think that covers it.
Can I chip in there as well, just because we have also received quite a bit of queries lately about the CPD, and that you are logging into your PPRA portal and you are completing your CPD there. Okay, remember it's a new way of CPD, and as Janet says, this is actually information that we are asking for, so it's more interesting.
Thank you so much.
2 cents worth.
So what are some of the most common challenges that firms face when registering with the PPRA, and how can they overcome these obstacles?
Wow, I think that everybody is rolling their eyes right now, but the PPRA is not entirely to blame, ladies and gentlemen. they do ask that you've got to understand what they require. And if you're not hiring an expert to complete your compliance for you, such as PPS, then you have to understand the process, okay? And the process means, number one, you must ensure that all your documentation is 100% clear. It is neat, it is filled in properly. A lot of people filling in their documentation will forget to click one block. That block could be your gender, okay? If you forget that, guess what? Your application is sitting on a pile and it's not attended to because one thing was wrong with it. So do be careful. Okay, so if you're going to be doing this on your own, there are some steps to follow. Firstly, plan ahead. As I said just now, you've got your 2024 renewal coming up. You should have renewed it by now. If you haven't renewed it by now, please do it today. Okay. So plan ahead with everything. You've got until the 31st of October to renew that. And also, once you have put in an application to the PPRA for whatever it is, it could be an error on your CPD, it could be that you've been waiting for 6 months for your FFC. Remember, you put your application in, you check that it's 100% correct, and then you follow up. And follow up means stop selling and renting, concentrate on your compliance, and get that 100% done. Okay, so you will be uploading a query to your portal. You will be emailing registrations at the PPRA or whichever email address at that time they decide to use, and make sure that you follow up and phone them. Yes, I think that is where I'm just finding that with the problems with agents in particular, with property practitioners, because we help both state agencies and agents. But I'm finding with the agents at the moment, there's a lot of error reports on their CPDs, and that is just continual follow-up with the PPRA. But remember, if you are not compliant in any aspect of your portal, your company is not compliant, and that's huge. So the solution is make sure that you have everything done correctly and you follow up, unless you take on the services of an outside provider.
Yeah, and also even when you're getting the advice to follow up, etc., just remember there are a lot of people at the PPRA dealing with queries. So it's not like you've made contact with Charlotte at PropAcademy and you talk to Charlotte at PropAcademy. When it goes to a call center, whether you're submitting your logbook letter, for example, you need to be extremely specific. Okay, so it will be exactly your full name, your ID, your reference number, not please find attached and help me. You need to be clear so that they can deal with your query efficiently. Okay, that'll help a hell of a lot.
Thank you, ladies.
Okay.
So how does legislation enforce a property practitioner to register with the PPRA? What support systems do they have in place to ensure that this actually happens seamlessly?
Okay, so should I take that one?
Yes, Jan, I think that's also under your expertise.
Okay, all right. So we all know that the Act legislates that all property practitioners must register with the PPRA. If they don't hold a FFC. If they don't hold a FFC, they are not entitled to earn commission. Legislation also imposes penalties that can remove the FFC from an agent if they're not compliant. As an example, their education. Previously, I said you have to be compliant throughout your portal. Okay, so the PPRA will then hold a disciplinary action where they can impose penalties and they can sanction you. And I think there are enough rules in the Act and the regulation to that you're aware that the Act gives the authority huge rights over and above the legislation to make their own rules and to penalize, if they need to, any practitioner that has misrepresented or put the public at risk. Okay, because that is what it's all about. Not all of it, a lot of it, is we're looking after the public here. Okay, so what they've done is they've got support systems. They've got their PPRA online portal, that's a support system. And the other support systems we were talking about were their training guidelines. If you need training guidelines and you can't find them, please, you can subscribe to PPS. I think if you can just pop that into the chat box and we will send you these guidelines, okay, in any aspect of compliance. And your CPD training, as I said, keeps you abreast of the changes within the PPRA, and they do change fairly often.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Can you perhaps, and Courtney, I think this one's for you, can you clarify which specific sectors within the property industry are mandated to register under the PPRA?
Yes, sure. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, here it is again. And I do see that we're getting really good questions. So thank you very much for posting them. What we're going to do is we're just going to complete our Q&As from 1 to 10, and then we're going to address these questions with Janice and myself. So please keep them coming. We do appreciate them, and it's going to help everyone in the audience. So if you have a look at this, these that we discussed earlier, so now we're just going to go into, we know estate agents, okay? There's a real estate, you've got estate agents, they're facilitating the sale, purchase, or rental of properties. With regards to auctioneers, now we often have people ask us, is it the person hitting the hammer, or is it the agent that is facilitating the sale? So the auctioneer is the person hitting the hammer. If you are facilitating a sale, then you are the real estate agent. Okay. And then we have bond and bridging finance originators. They are handling the public's money. Okay, so they're giving advance to agents for commission, etc. Then they will fall under this act. The Homeowners Association. Okay, so that's the HOAs who perform in property practitioner activities. Okay, so they have a relationship with the owners, and then they may dabble in rentals and sales. So then they need to comply. All right. It just makes sense that they do dabble in it because they're hands on deck. They're literally right there. They form relationships with people in the buildings, etc. But then they need to comply. Okay. Managing agents. Okay, so we've got talking to the public about the property and about money, or loading and releasing the public's money. So often we get asked in a managing agent who in this business actually needs to comply. So if they are loading or releasing the public's money, then they need to comply. Okay, talking to the public about property or about money. So you can divide your staff into 2 categories. And then we've got property facilitators and intermediaries. Anybody facilitating a transaction, all right, with a monetary gain. And then we've got numbers, you haven't got your numbers there, but number 7 is the business brokers, including sales of franchises, okay, and business undertaking. You've got developers who perform property practitioner activities, okay. So you know, we'll also probably dabble in the developing side of it. So if the developer sells off plan and then Courtney purchases the property and then she goes back to that sales agent who sold to them and says, please, can you also find me a tenant, or please, can you sell my unit? I'm no longer in the right financial position. These guys need to be registered with FFCs and be compliant. And then we've got property advertising platforms, which confuses quite a lot of people. You know, you need to think of an advertising platform that will allow the seller, for example, to go directly onto the platform in order to sell. Okay, so if they are allowing that, selling or renting, allowing sellers selling or renting to tenants, liaising directly with the public. Okay. Then you've got property practitioners who specialize in collecting and distributing trust monies in terms of Regulation 2.4.1. Okay, so just think of it like if your agency is not facilitating that money is getting paid directly into another company's trust account, and that company is distributing the public's money on behalf of the estate agent, then that company would need to be registered with the PPRA. Okay, and then you've got attorney employees. So if you're an attorney and you've joined us, if you're an attorney and you act in your course of business, then you are fine. But as soon as you're acting out of your course of business, so you're actually sourcing properties and selling and renting one or the other, then you need to comply with the regulation. And the last one we have here is timeshare and fractional ownership practitioners. If you go to timeshare, you're dealing with real estate, you're dealing with the public's money. That one's pretty much as clear as real estate.
So what are the legal implications for these specialization firms that fail to register with the PPRA?
Colleen, there's no real difference. They're real estate agents, they're property practitioners. So everybody is now falling into that same bucket, okay? So we fall under the same act and we fall under the same legislation. So if your firm, if you are a managing agent, an auctioneer, or any one of those specializations, and you fail to register, you're then classed as non-compliant. And you also then don't hold a FFC, and you cannot earn commission, and you are opening your firm and your clients up. You're just misrepresenting, and you're going to incur penalties. It's just not worth it. And it's also not just the PPRA penalties you're looking at. Look at FEEC at the moment. It's grey listed, and because they're grey listed, they're actually leaning on the PPRA to help them get back into the whitelisting, if it's called that. And by doing that, they're saying, if people are not compliant in FEEC, please, PPRA, block the FFC for us. And the PPRA will do that. And when you look at FEEC and you're not compliant with FEEC, and this is why compliance is just so important, and it's such a waste of time for you, the agent, to be doing it yourself, is if you look at FEEC, as a natural person, your fine can be up to 10 million. As an agency, as a firm, your fine can be up to 50 million. Why go there? So, that's just, I hope I answered your question.
Definitely. And I think you actually answered a question that was asked previously in the chat, Courtney, if I'm not mistaken. But obviously, we will get to all chats. It's just nice to see that we are flowing into that direction. Jan, then my next question is, the recent act and the related regulations clearly state that FFCs must be issued within a certain period from the date of application. Can you explain this legislation and let us know what the procedures are that must be followed to ensure that the PPRA performs timelessly?
Well, that's the new act that came in, and with the regulation, and the regulations looking after you, the property practitioner. Okay, so they're saying they don't want you to have to endure the delays that are caused by admin inefficiencies in the PPRA. So what they are saying here is that if you do not, you have, the PPRA have 30 working days within which to issue you with an FFC. So that's 30 working days. Okay, now, if you look at it, let's say you forgot to tick that gender block on your application form, you start again from scratch. Okay, so make sure that your forms are correct. Okay, so your date only kicks in from when everything is 100% correct. Okay, so after the 30 days have expired, if the PPRA fails to issue you with your FFC, then you, the agent, can issue a formal letter to the PPRA. And in that letter, you've got to draw attention to the fact that your 30-day working day period has lapsed and the FFC has not been issued. So now you've given them that letter. And remember, you've got your backup. Okay, so your backup is you storing it in the cloud and you're storing it all over the show. Okay, so that when they say to you, you didn't register, we've got nothing on file for you, you can say, here it is, here's proof that you've got it, here's my reference number that I logged a query, here's my reference number that I tracked my query, etc. Okay, so then once you've given the formal letter, within 10 days from that formal letter, well, it says within a reasonable time thereafter. This has not been tested in court yet, so we need a case study. Okay, so anyone out there wants to give it a bash, we'll be watching. So you have got a reasonable time after you've given that letter in and put it in as 10 days in your mind, okay, that it is deemed that you've now got your FFC. So you can give the proof to the attorney and he cannot withhold your commission, because remember, the attorney is obliged, if you do not have an FFC, to phone your seller and say, Mr. Seller, the agent does not hold a FFC. You owe them 265,000 Rand in commission. Would you like to pay it or not? Or perhaps you want to give them 10,000 Rand as a gesture. Okay, guys, you've got to be compliant. Okay. Now, so the practical implication is that the PPRA, the Act, is trying to protect property practitioners from being unfairly penalized due to these admin delays in the PPRA by deeming your FFC has been issued. Okay. But as I said previously, keep record.
Yeah.
And sorry, just with regards to the keeping record as well, when we spoke to the PPRA, they also said if there is an issue with the portal's blocking you from doing something, or there is some sort of issue, please just take a screenshot, but include the bottom where you've got the date and the time on your computer, because any evidence like that counts as record keeping.
All right. Any other comments from you ladies on that specific one?
I'm happy with that. So it's your 30 days, it's then your formal letter, and make sure your record keeping is 100%.
Yes, that's pretty much
correct. Yes.
So then I want to know, how does the PPRA monitor non-compliant agents?
Can I go, Courts?
Yes, please do.
Okay. So the PPRA imposes penalties on all property practitioners that fail to comply with the Act, with the regulation, and with the authority's rules. And remember, the authority keep putting notices out, okay? Those have to be adhered to. So these penalties are there to enforce compliance and maintain industry standards and professionalize the industry and protect consumers. That's a biggie. So the PPRA have a multifaceted approach on how they go ahead and check or monitor these non-compliant agents. And they rely very greatly on complaints that come in on their portal. They do routine audits, okay, of agencies, and they do pick up non-compliance. It's very difficult to maintain compliance when you've got a whole lot of agents and you're doing it yourself in-house while you're trying to sell and rent. They also do it by having inspections into those offices and obviously just monitoring agents within their portal and monitoring FFCs. So what I have to say is they're not out there to hang you guys. They do have procedures to ensure fairness and to ensure accountability. Okay, so they are going to look at it very carefully.
And another way to, sorry, Jan, another way to monitor it, monitoring non-compliance, which is also open to the public and agents, is to go into the PPRA's website and you can do the whistleblower, that's what they call it. You can phone or email. And the PPRA, I've always said it's the one department that does work really well. So yeah, if you do have complaints, and you know, like I get these complaints about agents, you know, I actually get the buyer complaining to PropAcademy, finding someone who can help them. And they come through to PropAcademy and they say, did the agent act ethically? Like, I feel like I was thrown in with a blindfold, you know? And so there are a lot of complaints and you hear their story and you can see where the agent has fallen. And that's also why, you know, compliance. But at the end of the day, education is going to help you to not have those issues in your agency. And education is going to help you be better as an agent. So for us, you know, the compliance is definitely a huge thing. But for me, the point in even starting PropAcademy was to uplift the industry. So if we're uplifting it, you know, I always say I sound like a stuck record, but it's knowledge is power. So if we are getting those agents educated, then we won't have to worry about things like, you know, people buying huge properties, spending absolute millions and feeling like they've been treated unfairly. So that is why the whistleblower was formed, and it's very easy to use. And then they take both sides of the story and they come to a conclusion, they mediate it, and then they'll get back to both parties.
Okay. I would also just like to say that with checking and monitoring, the PPRA are also checking with other government departments. They, as I said earlier, they in tow with FEEC and also with SARS, and that is why they right now are asking for they like to see an annual SARS certificate, SARS clearance certificate.
Yeah, and then they're also going to things like, the different types of penalties. You've got, you can get fined, you can get suspended or revoke your FFC. There's a few more. So if you have a look at getting fined, the PPRA can impose fines on property practitioners for non-compliance of the Act. And that's just a consequence of not following the Act. The specific amount will obviously depend on the severity of the violation. And these fines range from minor to major. And we've had massive firms going through these fines. There are things that happen, and they're not great, but we get called in to help get everything in order, and then they're able to practice again. Obviously, we don't want to get to that stage. So there can be serious breaches of conduct or unethical behavior or non-compliance. Most of the ones I've assisted is non-compliance. And then I just also wanted to mention, while we're on fines, that the historical fines for not resigning from the PPRA. So, for example, 10 years ago, you left the industry and now you're coming back and they say to you, you've got to pay 20,000 Rand fine. These fines can be waived if you can prove that you weren't in the industry for that period you didn't have an FFC. Okay, so that's very important to remember, and they're not going to backdate any people who did pay for the fines, but going forward, if you can prove it, then you're actually safe from there. The other thing is to suspend or revoke your FFC. Never a nice thing to happen. And it has happened to some clients that I know that have contacted us. Property practitioners who fail to meet with the PPRA's compliance requirements, such as not holding a valid FFC, may have their certificate suspended or revoked. And this would typically be a case where they have not applied for their FFC. Operating without an FFC is illegal. It shocks me that I have to say that, but a lot of agents out there at the moment without FFCs, they need to, it ruins the whole industry. We need to have, you can't go being a doctor without having your qualification. So we need to get everything fixed up there. And then operating without one is obviously illegal. And then, if you're conducting any sort of property-related business, then you need to be registered.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Jan can also cover something with regards to, when some of the agents have to forfeit their commission.
Yeah, well, we have chatted about that. So if you're not compliant, you don't get your commission, and we've discussed how that is held back at the source. And also you can be disqualified temporarily or permanently from being a practitioner in the industry. So it's very important to uphold your ethics and uphold your compliance.
And also, just to clarify, because I have read some of the questions, sorry, Kathleen,
it's perfect.
With regards to the disqualification, and I like how Jan says temporarily or permanently. Okay, I have had agencies, I have had developers, I have had commercial companies as well that have been temporarily disqualified until they can prove compliance.
Yeah. As we said, the PPRA will take everything into account and will give you leeway to rectify anything. Okay.
So for firms that have not been compliant, and I know we're still on this point, you've mentioned the potential penalties and repercussions. What are the steps that they can take to rectify the situation?
So basically, they must address the non-compliance issues. Okay, so they must conduct thorough internal reviews for non-compliance throughout the agency, or they can a compliance company to do that. Okay, and honestly, at the end, I'll just let you know a little bit more about that. But it's not going to break the bank by any means, and it'll just give you peace of mind. So you've got to make sure that if the Estate Agents Affairs Board, or the PPRA as they're now known, walk into your offices, that you can tick all of those boxes. And we've got a list of exactly what they are looking for. Okay. You've got to rectify any type of error that you had with your documentation and with your compliance. So that's got to be rectified properly. You've got to ensure that you submit a formal reapplication or renewal document so that you can become appointed again. Courtney, training as well.
Yeah, you need to address training and development needs in your agency. Ensure that all practitioners are with the within the agency comply with the educational requirements. Okay, Janet said it earlier, if your agent is non-compliant, so is your company. Arrange for necessary trainings. So PropAcademy work very closely with Services CETA and mainly PPRA to make sure that we can, help agents and agencies keep up to date with whatever they need. So if there's something that is needed, we will supply it. Jan, there was also just some input that you might want to put on this training point with regards to the 6 modules.
I most certainly do. Okay. So remember, prior to the 1st of July, we had the logbook, which everybody had a year to complete. With the new Act coming into place, the new Act stipulated that the training period was for 6 months. Now, what is happening is that there are trainers out there who are not accredited with the Services CETA. And please remember, no one is accredited with the PPRA. They will not endorse any trainer. Okay, so you have to be accredited with Services CETA or QCTO, which PropAcademy is. So when you are a new agent, you are not going to do 6 modules and then do your NQF4 and then your PDE4. Now your 6 modules are contained within that NQF4. So don't let anybody tell you that you have to do that as well, because that is in the marketplace at the moment. The only people that have to do these 6 modules because they're not in that qualification, they're not doing the qualification, are those that are exempt from doing the NQF4. So let's say you are an attorney, or you've got an NQF7 in any field, you are now exempt from doing your NQF4 and 5, but you now need that knowledge. So we take the workplace modules from the accredited qualification, and they are delivered to you as the 6 practical modules. And only if you are exempt do you have to do that.
Correct.
Can I go one step further?
Yeah.
You all have to fill in the form on the template on the PPRA site, saying that you've done those 6 pracs. So if you have done the qualification, as soon as you finish your last 6 module, just fill in that form and send it through. Okay.
Yes, no, that's perfect.
I hope that was clear enough.
It was, I think it was clear enough. And if there's more questions, we can also go over it again.
Yes. No,
what about submitting formal application or renewal, Jan?
Well, you must always put your formal renewals back in if you're going to want to continue trading, if you've been non-compliant and you're coming back in to be compliant. Okay. So I'm not sure how far to take this question now, because if you did not read, I think you can talk about it later on, Courtney, that
Sure.
if you did not deregister as an agent, what is the implication on re-registering? I think let's leave that for later on here. But basically, remember, when you are not compliant and you want to become compliant again, reply to the PPRA when they email you. Okay, and contact them and rectify your non-compliance. Don't just sit there and think it's going to go away. It's not going to go away. They've got checks and balances out there, and they're busy doing them. Okay, and seek professional advice. Consider using someone like ourselves. We do know what we're doing, and what we do is we look at your entire agency and your agents for a very nominal annual fee. And then we monitor that and all of their needs throughout the year. So you will always be compliant and you can get on with selling and renting and dealing in property. And especially if you are another specialized field now and want to come in through that, don't worry about it. Let us do it for you.
Yeah, and then I think with regards to implementing internal controls, we call it a code blue in all the companies that we've worked with. But to develop and implement internal controls and processes, just to ensure that ongoing compliance is obtained with the PPRA. Yeah, you know, do you have regular audits? Which month do they need to be submitted? What does the audit need to include? You've got compliance checks that needs to happen, staff training that needs to happen, staff inductions, etc. So all of that in any company, in any industry should really be looked at. I'm saying any industry, obviously not with regards to PPRA, but you should have internal controls. Okay, so that was just part of it.
And that's based for those internal controls is your audit checklist or your inspection PPRA checklist.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think just to be mindful of time as well, we are on my last question, and then we could head over to the Q&A. So I think to close off, and this is addressed to both of you, can you share any real life examples where registration with the PPRA helped a firm succeed or avoid potential legal issues?
Yeah, cool. And I'll keep my answer brief so that, because I see there are really nice questions to answer and I don't want to miss out on that. Okay, so basically I don't have real life examples, but all we do is we try to promote compliance within the real estate industry in the totality, okay? So avoid your fines, avoid penalties, ensure that your firm is compliant, that you follow the rules, that you don't take the Property Practitioners Act and take a paragraph you like and stick to it. Read the whole act to understand the overall picture of it. You can avoid legal claims just by adhering to regulations. If you get complaints, customer complaints, deal with them. Make sure that you're upholding good ethics in your company. Keep records. You know, record keeping will ensure that you avoid all fraudulent charges. Record keeping is so important. You know, we're sales agents and we're out on the road. You need the administration team to back you up and to help you with everything. So when they do come through an audit, you've got everything in order. And then I'll hand over to Jan.
Well, yeah, I would just say that the most important thing with being compliant is to avoid business disruptions. You don't want your agency and your agents closed, and you don't want to lose money. So that to me is the most important thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan.
Asia.
All right. So, Courtney, you could let me know how you want to tackle on the chats. You'll know which ones are repeating. I think you've seen quite a few.
I think I'm going to start at the top. It's only fair. Yes. And then I'm going to work my way down. And if it's a PropAcademy query, I'm happy to stay on and assist with those. But let's deal with the general consensus here, if you don't mind.
I think the first one is from Willem, so I'm going to read it to you.
Thank you.
So Willem says, hi, what is the requirements for business brokers? We have been registered with the PPRA and EAAB for the last 10 years, 10 plus years. Is it a requirement in terms of the new legislation?
Should we do his follow-up question for Jan as well?
Yes. Okay, let me read the follow-up question.
So
if a business broker only sell the business and not properties, is registration with the PPRA a requirement?
As a business broker, you have to be registered with the PPRA. You get a business broker FFC. Okay, so all of your specialized fields, you must hold 2 FFCs, one in the specialized field, and if you're dealing in real estate, one in real estate. Okay, so if you're a business broker and you're not selling a property, or the business is not, you don't sell a property with the business, then you don't need a real estate FFC. Okay, but if you're selling a franchise or a property business, then you do. So you've got to really define what your course of business is. And please, it's Janet at Principal Services, and I'm sure we can just pop my number in there as well. And I'm happy to help. Just advice.
Yeah, and Willem, you can obviously let us know if you're happy with that answer. And if you have questions, I would definitely highly recommend you reach out to Janet. Let's see. So we have Carlos. Janet, nice to chat to you again. you mentioned anyone that takes a fee from the sale of properties, but if a company owns properties and sells them and does not receive a fee or commission, is the company still deemed as a property practitioner if it sells its own assets?
Yes, it is. Okay, it's dealing with the public. You're dealing with a buyer. You're dealing maybe with a tenant, but you're definitely dealing with a buyer. It's a person that has to be protected from us agents. Okay, so yes, you need a FFC.
Good. All right. David Campbell is asking, so if the PPRA is delayed and slow, you can't earn commission, and then just FFC certificate.
Yes, I think we covered this. I did.
We did.
So yes, they are slow, but Jan went over that whole section
Yes.
on applying for
What
the
you can do.
FFC and how to deal with the delay. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I have also answered here Mandy, and I think the next one is Reese Olson.
Reese Olson. Okay, so Reese is asking, has there been a case where a developer has been issued with penalties due to non-compliance?
I don't know of a case, Reese, but yeah, don't sit back and wait for that to happen.
Okay, and just from my side, I have heard of more than one case where I've had to advise them on how to become compliant and put them in touch with the right people at the PPRA. Obviously, I won't give any more information than that.
And I see you've, I think Saskia responded on one of your answers, so I'm going to read that one. Where an agent with an FFC expiring on 31 December 2025 will be doing his NQF4 as from end of this year, will he need to apply for renewal before 31 October 2025 before he writes the PDE4?
So he doesn't, regardless of education, if your FFC, your 3-year FFC expires on the 31st of December 2025, then you need to have your renewal completed by absolute latest the 31st of October 2025, but please don't wait till the last date. And how the new regulations are working is that they want you to be fully compliant in your status before your renewal will be processed. Okay, so I feel like, Saskia, if we can talk to each other, Charlotte can also just put my details here, and you can even also talk to Charlotte, but we need to assist you here to make sure that everything is done timeously.
Yes, and I think you did answer Lydia's question with the date as well. So it's technically, I think it's a similar question as the previous one. Yes. And then Reese is asking, again, hi Reese, is it still a legal requirement for a principal to sign off on OTP when a practitioner has a full status FFC?
Yes, that has not changed. Okay.
All right. Let's see. I think you did answer Marius. Let's look at Buyi. Buyi's asking what documents needed to be completed by new interns to apply for FFC.
Okay, that will be handled by Jan.
Basically, you must, and always please go down the latest document, because they change their documents weekly. Well, not weekly, but you know, you fill in one document, next week it's another document. So go and download an E1, not an E1, an application for registration of a natural person if you're a natural person, and then supply your SARS clearance and supply your certified ID. That's it. That's if you're a brand new agent, and obviously your letter of employment.
All right. And then Peter is asking, where do I track down my NQF4 certificate done through PropAcademy in 2015?
Yes, perfect. I will. I've replied to Peter. I've just said, please, can you? And I'm glad we're mentioning it, because if anybody needs any help, you know, putting all your pieces together, just give us a shout. So put Tracy's email address there, which is Tracy without an E at propacademy.co.za. She's in the quality control department, and she will assist with tracking of certificates or helping. Once you're in the course, she's your lady. Okay.
All right. And then Lydia's asking again, and sorry if you've already responded to her, but if you are NQF qualified, when latest do you need to qualify for PDE4?
Before your renewal date. So you got your expiry date of your FFC, and then you take October that year, and you need to be compliant by October that year, because otherwise they won't renew your FFC.
All right. And then Rina is asking, and please help me if I'm reading this wrong, but what happens about auditing if you are exempted from a trust account? What does the PPRA expect of agency?
Can I take that one?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you are exempt from holding a trust account, you must have a registered accountant who produces your annual financial statements. You must have them done within 6 months of your year end, and make sure that you've got them stored in case the PPRA ask for them.
Right. Oh, I see Reese. Sorry, Reese. Rowan.
Yeah.
For some reason, your team is listing you as Reese Olsen. So hi, Rowan. We'll remember that one.
Very nice.
Okay, let's see. Rowan, it could be because you signed into his account. So that might be the only reason. All right. So tell your son he's famous now.
Can we offer to give Rowan a lesson on IT, perhaps?
Teams.
Well,
We've got a lot of
I
Teams courses at CTU.
Rowan knows where you live, Jan, so I'm sure he'll just come through. I think there's just one last question there from Rowan that I can see.
Yes, I see it. Yeah.
Okay.
So just back to the principal question: how does it work with independent agents, agencies? I'm assuming EXP or like
Yes,
experience.
EXP. Yes.
Okay. Oh,
Sorry,
I'll read that one again. My bad. So just back to the principal question: how does it work with independent agencies like EXP?
What do you mean? How does it work? How does what work?
So it's
back to the principal question. Just see
sorry, we're backtracking. Yeah, quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not that clever.
Is it okay? So Caroline, do you mind? Because I think I know what he's saying. Okay, so yes, he's saying, is it a legal requirement for a principal to sign off an offer to purchase when a practitioner has a full status certificate? And he's saying, if you are all over the place, how does it work? You know, you're independent agents everywhere. How does this work?
Regardless of whether you're independent or whether you sit in an office every day with your principal, the rules are the rules. So if you are an intern or a candidate estate agent, property practitioner, you must have your principal or a mentor who has a full status of 3 years or more sign off your document. Now, when I say 3 years or more, I saw a notice recently that said 6 months or more. So I stand to correction there. I'll have to check on that, but go on the 3 years for now. Oh. So if you full status, you don't need that.
Correct. Okay. So she's answered all of that in Rowan. Thank you, Jan. So Rowan, full status can do what they want in a nice way. Oh, take me back.
So we've got 3 minutes left in the call. If there are any final questions, I just want to encourage the audience to please post them. I see we've got the majority of the audience still in the session. While we are waiting for any final questions, I just want to remind, contact details have been posted in the chat. You're welcome to scroll back and you'll see Janet's contact details as well as PropAcademy's. But if you struggle with the chat, go to the website. PropAcademy's website offers all the necessary contact details. And if there are any queries related to what Janet can support with, PropAcademy will refer you directly to her. So please head over to the website. They've got a live chat always available to assist you. Well, during working hours, of course, but please just reach out and they can definitely assist. But we will also be in contact with the people who've attended, especially if we recognize particular questions from the registration list. We'll reach out to you and see where we can help you further. And of course, keep an eye out. We constantly do webinars like these on very relevant topics or important topics that need to be discussed. We hosted a webinar on BE compliance and regulation a few weeks ago. If you missed that, you'll find it on the PropAcademy website under the podcast page. You can go look at the recording. We had quite a great turnout. We do know that some people couldn't attend it, so please go check it out, but we will possibly host something similar very soon. So just keep an eye out on the webinar notifications. We really appreciate you attending today. It's always great to have an engaging audience. So thank you to those who posted questions. Thank you for collaborating with us in this conversation, it's always welcome, and it's always just fantastic for us to see the participation. So
yes,
thank you
so much, Caroline, for hosting yet another amazing webinar, for all your experiences that you have to share with us. Thanks to everybody. I see the comments coming in. That's awesome. I have put the podcast link here because everybody emails me after this and says, where's the recording? So please save the PropAcademy podcast link sent here, and the recording will be posted within the next 2 weeks. Okay.
Yes,
Thanks,
I'll repeat that. It
guys.
has been posted in the chat. You'll just scroll up to all the thank yous and you'll find it. And Courtney's correct. Whenever a webinar is complete, we do post a recording there for the public to access. Thank you, everyone. We are 12 o'clock on the dot. Well done with our time management as well. Have a great afternoon.